Aboye, Aboya, Aboshishe. Greetings, everybody. Blessings to you and yours on this blessed day of uh, 2020. Today is Friday. Osei Ekwo. Blessings to all of the Orisha devotees, priests, and supporters. Um, I'm going to give folks a little bit of time to join us. Maybe y'all are still throwing your obi right now. I pray that your obi will be accepted and that the divinities will confer upon you all of the blessings of your heart. Everything that is consistent with your destiny may come to pass. I'll give you a minute here. Just give us a little time for folks to join. Boye, greetings, blessings. Let's see here. Why don't we do a little adjust? Can we? Maybe not. Yeah, it's a little better. All right, welcome. Boye. Welcome to everyone. Today we're going to have a great chat, really great chat, super insightful. We're talking about the most important ceremony that of Orisha lifestyle. Today we're gonna give you some real crucial insights into the basic, most fundamental, most essential practice of our tradition. Okay, perfect time for you to get deeper into the real nuts and bolts, right? People are always asking me, where do I start? What do I do first? How should I begin my practice? Today I'm gonna give you the direct link. All right, we're going straight into the most important ceremony of the practice. All right, this is it. If you've been wondering what to do, if you've been wondering what the practice is all about, you've been trying to figure out what's the difference between, say, Isheshe and other traditions, this is where we're going to bring it all the way down to the root, to the core, so you'll have a real clear understanding of what the expectation is, what you should do, and how you should go about structuring your studies and building up your practice. Because it's a practice. Okay, key word is practice. Like you practice the piano and you practice jujitsu and you practice yoga. Orisha lifestyle is a practice. Okay, it's not a one-shot deal. It's not an event, right? I got my beads and so now I'm set. It's done. It's not. That's not how it works. It's practice. You got to do something every day, a little bit every day. And some days are better than others. Gradually, you start to master different elements of the practice. But more importantly, as you discipline yourself and you stay with it over time, you end up mastering yourself. That's the real key. It's the super missing link. We don't talk enough about what happens internally as you get different icons and you do different rituals and ceremonies. It's about self mastery. You're discovering yourself little by little as you carry out these different practices that have been established and maintained, for thousands of generations. So, like I said, today we're going to get down to the basic, most important, most fundamental ceremony. Right? This is what drives everything. This is what empowers everything. This is what sets the stage for everything you could possibly do and become in this tradition. You learn this ceremony properly and you practice it religiously, precisely, and with discipline. A whole bunch of other things will be wiped away. The necessity for a lot of other activities will be eliminated, and a lot of other powers and capabilities and small miracles will be revealed to you. And so, if it sounds like a panacea, if it sounds like something that's out of this world, it is. Okay, it's really super essential. And so, I want to just give our good people one more minute to join us because I know how it is. The bell goes off, and then how long does it take for folks to join? So I'm going to give us just a couple minutes so people can take advantage of the fullness of this conversation. I hope it's a beautiful day where you are. We are in. This is just every day I'm talking about the weather because this is the Bay Area, and the Bay Area is the weather pattern is so dynamic. Today it's beautiful and clear and sunny. Yesterday it was like patchy in between. Who knows who know what was going to happen. It was one, you know, it was London fog in the morning, and then it was like, you know, springtime in the Glen, right, in the afternoon, and then the day before yesterday it was just dreary and wet, like I don't know what. So welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Orisha Lifestyle Academy and the School of Orisha Studies. I'm your instructor, Obafemi Orikunwa, and today what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through and introduce to you, you know, some of the lesser known aspects of the most important ceremony of Orisha lifestyle. All right, this is the foundation. This is the foundation. Um, Once upon a time, uh, I was watching a film, or it was a video, it was some kind of an instructional video, and the teacher cited an Eastern belief, or like a proverb, we'll say, which was before enlightenment, chop wood and fetch water. After enlightenment, chop wood and fetch water. Okay? Before enlightenment, chop wood and fetch water. After enlightenment, chop wood and fetch water. And for us, very similar kind of a philosophy or an understanding, which is before initiation, do Osei, offer Obi, and, you know, make your prayers. After initiation, offer Obi and make your prayers. Okay? Osei Fa or Osei Orisha is the most standard, most consistent, most essential ceremony that you need to know. Before you become initiated or before you receive a shrine, you need to know how to perform Osei. After you receive a shrine, after you've been initiated, you need to be able to do Osei. Okay, it is compulsory. It's like brushing your teeth, right? It's like bathing. It's like combing your hair. You cannot do without it. You got a body, you got to tend to it. All right, and tending to your physical body is brushing your teeth, you know, then combing your hair, bathing. Tending to your spiritual body is doing Osei and all of the small rituals that go into doing Osei. And just like if you neglect those small daily activities of taking care of your physical body, you'll suffer in the end. You'll end up with bigger problems that cannot be easily resolved. But they'll be acute. They've got to be addressed. But you know they got to grow a longer and longer tail. So it is with your spiritual life. If you don't tend to your daily routine, you don't do your daily ritual with Osei, then it starts to create other kinds of complications that, yes, got to be addressed. You may have to make a big ebo, you may have to do a big ceremony, but even that is not going to totally wipe the slate clean. It just creates a level of stability or stasis so that then you can start to incorporate some new practices into your life that will continue to strengthen you, continue to purify you, continue to keep you on track. All right, so prevention is better than cure. Prevention is better than cure. Osei is preventative medicine. Osei is preventative medicine. You practice Osei now before you have a shrine. You practice Osei now before you've been initiated. You start practicing Osei right now. You can. Okay, you can observe the Osei and start carrying out some of the practices and learning some of the liturgy that goes along with it right this moment. All right, and that's why this is crucial. You don't have to be an initiate to practice Osei. All right, so what is Osei? What am I talking about when I say Osei? I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of Ifa because that is what I practice. Okay, but all Orisha have Osei. Okay, the cycle is just different, and I'm going to explain it and you'll understand. So Osei is the 4-day worship cycle. Osei is the 4-day worship cycle. Now, if you talk to somebody in West Africa, they're going to say 5 days because they count the day that they're in, right? So today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right? That's how we would count it. You know, that's how I say 4 days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There they would say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Friday. right? This one and the four is the same for people who say it's a 5 day calendar, but it's from the Western perspective, it's 4 days. All right. So those 4 days they begin with Obatala. Obatala is the first day. Ifa is the second day. Ogun is the third day. Shango is the fourth day. That's how you know it's 4 days, because there are only four primary deities that we venerate in the cycle. Obatala being number one, Ifa being number two, Ogun being number three, Shango being number four. That's the 4 day cycle. Now, on each of those days, you venerate a cohort of divinities, right? So Obatala shares his day, Ifa shares his day, Ogun shares his day, Shango shares his day, right? So there's a cohort of deities that you venerate on each of the four. Like I said, I'm going to speak to you from the perspective of Ifa, because that's my central orientation, Ifa. But the template is going to carry out for all the divinities. So you've got a 4 day cycle that unfolds infinitely. It repeats 4 days. Okay, so for us in the West, you got a 30-day month. You would see roughly 7 Osei worship days in what we would call a calendar month, right? And every 16 days is what we call the Itadogun. So every time the 4 day calendar repeats 4 times, then you're going to see Itadogun. On the Itadogun, that's the day that all of the awos, all of the members of a community come together and they cast Ifa for that community. All right? Every 16 days. So within our temple, in our school, we cast Ifa every 16 days, and we give a message that sets out a theme for all of the devotees for a 16-day cycle. It gives us taboos and observances, sacrifices, medicines, insights, and predictions, right? So that's the sort of the basic framework of Osei. So the first thing you need to know about Osei is how to work out the calendar. So today is the first day of, today is the day of Osei. And 4 more days, it'll be Osei again. So today is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday will be the next day of Osei. And it will carry on from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? And it carries on like that every 4 days. Okay? So that's the basis. What is the origin of Osei? The origin of Osei is multiple. On one hand, you have the Osei begins with Obatala coming from the heavenly realm and manifesting the world, shaping the world in the third dimension. That's why it begins with Obatala, because Obatala came first. He's the one who created the Osei calendar. He is the one he is the established, or the one who establishes time. Obatala. He descends, that day belongs to him. He gave the next day to Orunmila. He gave the next day to Ogun, and the next day to Shango. Okay? So the origins, one of the origins, the most primary origin of Osei is Obatala comes from the heavenly realm and establishes the third dimension, right? And so to have time, you got to have space, okay? They go together. So Obatala is what brings things from the unseen realm, and he manifests them in the seen realm, and so it becomes three-dimensional. Then it adheres to time, okay, and space. So that's one of the beginnings. I'm going to share with you some of the other verses of Ifa that give us the significance of Osei and how Osei plays out in the lives of the divinities. Where we talk about Osei, Obatala establishing Osei, the Holy Odu of Osei Meji teaches us how Obatala marries Osei, Ojo Osei, the day of Osei. Obatala marries Osei. And when Obatala marries Osei, his life becomes complete. Okay? So the verse runs this way. It breaks into pieces. It cracks into tiny fragments. It is not the practice of paint. It is not the practice to paint dry palm fronds with camwood. These were Ifa's messages to Osala Osheremobo, who is Obatala. When seeking the hand of Ojose as a wife, he was advised to perform sacrifice. He complied. Obanla, another name for Obatala, great king, I hereby offer my Osei kola nuts, Today is the Osei day. Okay? So in this instance, Obatala was looking for a wife. He needed somebody who could help him, who could support him, who could assist him in all of his duties of creation. At the same time, Ojose was a bride or a maiden, and Ojose had all of this ability. She had this power, potential, but she didn't have someone to complement there. She didn't have someone who would give her the attention and the focus and and the support that she needed to be able to manifest her power. So she was looking for someone who could support her, someone who could give her focus and attention, someone who could, give some direction and attention to her life. Or Batala was looking for someone who could help him to manifest his dreams, someone who could help him carry out his duties as the sculptor and the artist and the creator of Olodumare. Both of them made sacrifice. When they made sacrifice, they were brought together. They got along well. Obatala respected Osei. Osei, Obatala cherished Osei and upheld her power. He promoted her power. He brought attention to her, her skills. Osei respected Obatala. She helped him and supported him in carrying out his duties. And so the two of them got together and they worked in harmony with one another. And so it's a metaphor, right? It's a metaphor for Obatala matching forces with Osei, and the two of them being able to thereby create and sustain creation in a harmonious fashion. Okay, and that comes from the Holy Odu Osei Meji. Likewise, there's another verse of Ifa that comes from Obara Meji that tells a very similar story. But in this instance, it explains how it was Orumila who married Ojo Osei. Okay, and how when Orumila married Ojo Osei, Orumila became wealthy. Orumila became prominent. Orumila was blessed with many children. Okay, it's a metaphor. And so it isn't that Orumila and Obatala are marrying the same person. It's a metaphor for how when the divinities adhere to this 4-day calendar, when they marry Ojose, then they become complete, right? And Ojose also becomes complete. So here's the way the verse runs. This is Obarameji. These were the declarations of Ifa to Orumila when he was going to marry Ojose. Ojose's mother is the one who procures money in the sea. Ojose's father is the one who produces beautiful beads in the town of Ofa. Ojose herself procures the beautiful and shining royal clothes. The new money has taken so long to arrive. Today is Ifa worship day, Ojo Ose. The good wife or the good husband has taken so long to arrive. Today is Ojo Ose. The new child has taken so long to arrive. Today is the Ojo Ose. The new automobile or the new vehicle has taken so long to arrive. Today is Ojo Ose. The new home has taken so long to arrive. Today is Ojo Ose. All good things of life have taken so long to arrive. Today is Ojo Ose. Ose, the worship day, is full of money. Tell the owner of Camwood Cloth to come and be initiated. This is Obarameji. Basically saying that we've been waiting, we've been anticipating, we've been trying and seeking and working so hard to see our hopes and dreams come to fruition. It is through the day of Osei that we're going to allow that is going to allow us to bring those things into reality. It is through observing Ojo Osei that we are going to bring our aspirations into our reality. Practicing Ojose is essential to realizing your potential, in other words. Another verse of Iwori Ogoda, we call Iwori Aweda, which is where we purify the Ori, tells us another instance wherein Oromila took Ojose as his bride. Iwori Aweda defies medicine. Iwori Aweda defies medicine. Sacrifice is most efficacious. This was the Awo who cast Ifa for Oromila, who was going to marry Ojo Ose as his wife. Ojose is a good wife. Orumila brought Ojose to be his wife. Ojose is a good wife. And so one of the keys in that is the opening, the name of the owl, that Iwori Aweda is more efficacious than medicine. Okay, sacrifice is most efficacious. This is telling us that, charms and magic and all those kinds of things, those are for special occasions. They have, flash, and they get quick and immediate results in certain instances. But it's through your spiritual discipline that you achieve a long-term success. It's through your ritual efficacy that you achieve long-term happiness and fulfillment. Ojo Ose, when you marry your spiritual discipline, when you become wed to your practice, and it is your everyday reality, and you devote yourself to it, this is how you bring your spirituality to a higher and higher level. All right? We could go on and on and on and on and on and on. I've got, so many great notes here on Ojo Ose, right? And why it is indispensable to your practice. But so far, what I hope you can grasp is that the divinities themselves practice Ojo Ose so that they can have fulfillment. The divinities themselves dedicate themselves to Ojo Ose so that they can have, they can manifest their potential. Okay? And so it is that you, as a practitioner of Orisha lifestyle, this is why it's Orisha lifestyle, you emulate the ways of the divinities. You look at the best practices that they establish and you follow those best practices. Ojose is indispensable to that practice, which is the significance of them marrying, right? Because when you marry, it's like you share everything. You become one. You share one space. You have a combined resource and lifestyle. All right. So when we look at Ojose in from the perspective of what it does for your internal development, we see equal evidence from the sacred text of Ifa that affirms our understanding that Ojose is something that purifies the inner world. Ojose is what will make you a better devotee. It will make you a better person. It'll help you to achieve a higher version of yourself. And so here we can look at the holy Odu of Idinleke, Irete, Idinleke. And this is an instance wherein Ifa teaches us how Orunmila practices Ose in a way that empowers and serves all of the other divinities. And as Orunmila serves all of the other divinities, they elevate him to the highest level of authority. Okay? So this verse runs this way. It is gentle character which enables the rope of life to remain strong in our hands. This was the teaching of Ifa for Orunmila, who was going to use gentle character to obtain the rope of life from the 401 divine powers. In this instance, the divinities, had achieved great things. All of them had accumulated powers. They took fire, they took thunder, they took lightning, they took the ability to move the oceans and the winds across the world. They were forces of nature. Orunmila himself didn't have any such powers. Orunmila was pretty feeble, as a matter of fact. And so, as all of the divinities were going out into the world and they were doing great things, they were being celebrated, they were being acclaimed, they were being praised, right? But while they were doing that, Orunmila would hang back in the shrine. And Orunmila would be tending to all of the altars of the divinities. He'd be offering them obi, he'd be offering them orobo, he'd be offering them water and gin and atare and all of the things that they like. He'd be constantly trying to figure out, through divination and consultation, what does this Orisha need? What does this Orisha need? And so this is like the power behind the throne. And so when they would come back, they'd find their shrines in immaculate condition. They would be energized, they'd be refreshed, right? They said, wow, this is great. And so then it came time that as their creation continued to grow, they had to figure out somebody who would be their king. And they said, well, what does the king have to do? Well, the king is going to be basically localized in the palace, and he's gonna tend to all the administrative affairs here on the home base. Well, if Ogun is at home, then he can't be out hunting. He can't be out fighting wars, the thing that made him famous. If Shango is in the palace, he's tending to the administrative duties. He can't be out in the world. He can't be, he can't be fighting wars. He can't be out, winning acclaim. One by one, all of the divinities thought about the responsibilities of being the king. They all said, you know what? Orunmila has been doing this all the time. He's been quietly tending to all of the internal affairs. Let Orunmila have that. Orunmila, you can take the throne. We're going to keep going out here and doing the things that have made us famous. And this is the way we say Orunmila used gentle character to seize the rope of life from the 401 divinities. And so Orunmila became, through his altruism and his desire to serve the divinities for their benefit, they in turn elect Orunmila to be their leader. He had the mindset and the temperament to be the leader. Okay, so it's Osei Ifa that gradually tames you and brings you down to a level of peace and stability, and emphasizes or clarifies the importance of your service, and that makes you better, and it makes you more eligible for increased responsibility. Okay. Ojo Osei. Ojo Osei is also a ritual or a ceremony that has multiple rituals in it that Ifa promotes as a way to bring families together. So we talked about Orunmila and Obatala, for example, marrying Ojo Osei, but this is a verse of Ifa that explains to us how within your biological family, with your loved ones, you practice Osei for cohesiveness and unity within your home. All right, so this is about creating a practice of family worship and how Ojo Osei is indispensable to bringing your family together and helping you to stay on one accord. Orunmila declares that it's time for Osei. I affirm, Ifa should be propitiated as according to expectation. Ifa says, if his devotee performs the usual propitiation, his wife Yapete B shall experience movement in her stomach. Ifa declares, if his devotee performs the usual propitiation, his wife will have a temporary joyful hunchback from carrying the baby. Ifa says that a devotee who performs Osei Ifa shall possess all the precious things hidden in the corner of a room. Ifa decodes that the movement in the stomach is pregnancy. Please let the wife of the devotee become pregnant with a good child. Ifa answers, a child is the hunchback of the wife of the devotee. Please let the wife of the devotee have a child tied to her back that looks like a hunchback. Orunmila pronounces that money is the precious thing hidden in the corner of a room. Please let both the husband and the wife be blessed with cool money. I appeal to you, please, cool money, make my home as your abode. Ajay, money has come and is indispensable. Ajay, please make my home your home. This comes from the Holy Odu of Ejiogbe. Okay, Ejiogbe. This Ifa tells us that as a husband and wife practice Ifa together, and they practice Osei Ifa together, then they will have all the joy and the fulfillment of a happy home. Okay. Ojo Osei is therefore a ceremony that promotes overall satisfaction and fulfillment. Okay, so there are more verses that I can share about what Osei Ifa is, but I'm going to pause here and I'm going to give you some breakdown of what it consists of, and then make space for you to ask questions or give comments to share your experience with making Osei, because I know that some of you are already devotees, you've already been making Osei, you've already gotten some positive results from the ritual, and it will be great for you to also, share some insights into what your lived experience has been. When we do Osei Ifa, the ceremony is And I keep saying ceremony and ritual because it's a habit. But Osei Ifa is a ceremony, and there are multiple rituals. The basis of Osei Ifa is as I mentioned before. First, you got to know your calendar. All right, it's crucial that you observe the calendar and you become sensitive to what the energy of each calendar day is. All right. Secondly, you've got to be you recite your ijuba, your iba, and every category of devotees is going to have their own kind of an ijuba. As a babalawo, my ijuba is focused on ifa. It focuses on the great babalawos of the past. It focuses on the exploits of Orumila, right? So my ijuba really pulls on the collective wisdom of all babalawos throughout history, right? A Shango devotee would have a different kind of an ijuba. An Obatala devotee would have a different kind of an ijuba. There's going to be some carryover, right, and some identical phraseology, for example, in everybody's ijuba. But overall, the idea through the ijuba is to give reverence to all of those great priests and divinities and ancestors who have come before you, because they're the ones who have passed on the knowledge from one generation to the next. So all of the verses that I shared before you, these aren't verses that I just know. These aren't verses that just pop into my head. These are things that were taught to me. These are things that were passed on to me. And so I give respect to the ones who taught me, with the understanding that the knowledge and those who passed it on are living entities. And so by paying reverence to them, they will be more apt to lend their support to me as I go forward to do what I'm about to do. After you've done your ijuba, then you're going to go through the process of doing some kind of a consecration, right? You're going to be consecrating your obi. You're going to be consecrating your oropo. You're going to consecrate the water. You're going to consecrate the gin. You're going to consecrate the palm oil, right? And you're going to then use those consecrated items to invoke the spirit of whichever divinities you're going to serve. Generally speaking, in Osei, you're going to venerate Eshu. Eshu is first, right? He's the gatekeeper. He's the door opener. He's the one that's going to allow the ritual to to be carried out successfully without chaos. You're going to venerate your ancestors for the reasons I just gave before. It's your ancestors who have passed on the mission to you. If it weren't for your ancestors, you wouldn't be here. So you venerate your ancestors. Now, at each one, when I say venerate, you invoke this divinity by calling on the shrine in the proper way. You invoke that divinity by reciting the oriki that belongs to that divinity. And when I say oriki, what I'm talking about are the praise poems. These are the things that recount the particular character, exploits, abilities, obligations of that particular divinity. So oriki is a coded language that you learn. It isn't just praising the Orisha. It is praising it, but it doesn't stop at just saying how great you are and how wonderful the things are that you've done and how thankful I am. But also, because of your nature, because of the way you were created, because of the things that you promised to do in the past, you're obliged to tend to me right now, right? I know you. I know who you are. I know your code. I know how you got here, and I'm calling upon you. I'm invoking certain spiritual laws to let you know that I know that you made an agreement to show up in the universe a certain way. So there's a give and take in your oriki. There's a level of command when you recite your oriki for that divinity. At the end of the day, though, what you're trying to do is get that deity's attention, make your prayer, and cast your obi. And you at every stage, Eshu, is my obi accepted? Eshu will tell you yes or no. Maybe he'll tell you maybe he'll accept it under certain circumstances. You comply with whatever Eshu asks for, and you move on to your ancestors, and you repeat that process, right? After your ancestors, then you're going to go and see Ori. You're going to give your obi to Ori. You're going to make your prayers. Okay, Ori's going to give you a response, and then you're going to move forward to, in my case, then I would go to Ifa. Okay, now if this Ojo said pure, if it's Obatala's day, then you will go to Obatala if you're an Obatala devotee. If you're an Oshun devotee, then you will go to your Oshun shrine. Shango, Ogun, Oloku, etc. Right? But the standard is Eshu, Egungun, Ori. Then you're going to venerate your particular Orisha. Right? That is going to allow you to get a full spectrum of insight as well as protection. The significance of making Osei is that every 4 days you're getting a checkup. You're calibrating your relationship with your divinities, right? And so little by little, what you're doing is you're doing that maintenance, and it should reduce your big, your the chance of you having to do a big thing, right? It's like I said, it's practice, it's maintenance, it's brushing your teeth. You brush your teeth every day, so when you go to the dentist, all they got to do is give you a deep cleaning, right? You go to the dentist and they're not yanking teeth out of your mouth or doing, drilling and all that kind of stuff. Because why? You've been brushing your teeth, you've been flossing, you've been rinsing your mouth out, you've been adhering to good dental hygiene. Oseh is good spiritual hygiene. Okay? If you practice good spiritual hygiene, you're going to be in good spiritual condition. This is why I say prevention is greater than cure, right? Practice good spiritual hygiene, and it's going to keep you in a really good position. It's not going to make you immune, but it is going to put you in a better condition than if you were not practicing Osei at all. All right. And so what we're doing right now, this is like the driving force. Some people are asking, well, how do we do this? How do we learn how to do this? This is the driving force of what I'm teaching in the School of Orisha Studies. How you can accumulate little by little all of the basic knowledge and the basic practices that would allow you to devote yourself to Osei Ifa on a regular basis and maintain a high level of spiritual conditioning. So let me pause there and open the floor. How many of you out there have practiced Osei Ifa or Osei of another divinity? Let me see some responses for all of the people who have practiced Osei. And if you have practiced Osei, what has been your experience with it? What are some of the small miracles and big miracles you've experienced through practicing Osei? Someone asked, how do you get started? Well, it depends on where starting is for you, but I can definitely say that within the School of Orisha Studies, you could just Google that, School of Orisha Studies, and you'll see, what we're offering, the different levels of training that I'm offering to get you started. So depending on what class level you join at, there's a level that I just am teaching you at Ijuba, right? I just rattled off all that stuff, Ijuba, the calendar, the Oriki, the Kiki Orisha, consecrating the water, the Jinn, etc. But that's a learning curve, right? It's going to take you a bit of time to learn to recite a complete Ijuba because we're doing all this in Yoruba, okay? Some people will tell you that you can do it in French, or you can do it in German, or you can do it in English. If it works for you, great. I was not trained that way, and I would not recommend that you do it that way because depending on what you're going to do, there's certain things that you're not going to recite in English. Period. I just gave you the verses in English just because I'm telling you the story. But when it comes to consecrating the Jinn, well, you need to use Yoruba words. You need to use the Yoruba, the tones and the phraseology to be able to invoke the spirit of that particular entity, right? And like I said, as you continue to practice, there will be certain things that you will not do in English, period. They will be done in Yoruba. So it's better to, it's mental conditioning in that regard. You need to train yourself to be able to say, Iba Olodumare Oba Tere de Kaye. You need to figure out how to say that, right? And that's what Osei is about. Little by little, just training your ear and your tongue and your breath and all the little tiny details that go into doing this practice to be able to, be in the practice and not on the periphery. Okay? So Osei is your foray into the practice. All right? So I'm not seeing folks put up that you guys are shy to say you practice Osei Ifa. That's okay. I'll be the only one to say I am a Osei practitioner. I do Osei. Okay? I do Osei. And I find that Osei is very, very insightful. for me personally. Um, sometimes the whole Osei ceremony gives me a complete message, right? When I incorporate everything that I see through the Obi divination with Eshu, Egungun, Ori, Ifa, Oshun. So when I put it all together, it tells a story, right? Sometimes it's just one, right? Sometimes it's just what the Egungun told me, just what I got through that process of making my prayers, making the offering. That gives me, that kind of sets the template. Okay, Fayinde says, I practice Osei Fa. Magnificent. We got one person an Osei practitioner. You define Osei as good spiritual hygiene, as spiritual practices with Orisha. Yes, I define Osei as it's a 4 day ceremony. Oops, sorry. Osei is a 4 day ceremony that constitutes good spiritual hygiene, right? It's like brushing your teeth, washing your hair, you know, changing your clothes. It's just something you ought to do. If you consider yourself a devotee, and you don't do ose, it's like saying you don't brush your teeth, right? You're a devotee and you don't practice ose. It's like, no, I don't bathe, right? That's bonkers. All right, so I see here we got fighting day. Ose gives me an outline and often advance notice. Exactly. Um, Question. You mentioned feeding a shrine during Ose. Can you explain for the people what a shrine is? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Fighting Day. When I say a shrine, I should have done this on the other side where I have shrines. When I say a shrine, what I mean is a receptacle that has been consecrated by a qualified priestess or priest. This is somebody who is, by definition, initiated and has been trained to offer that kind of a service. All right. So I come from the school of thought that if I don't have the an Orisha, if I haven't, if I'm not initiated to that Orisha, then I shouldn't give you that Orisha. Um, Likewise, if I'm initiated to any Orisha and I've been trained to work with other shrines, then I am qualified to give you a shrine for worship. So I myself am a Babalawo, but I am trained to give you other shrines. I have those shrines and I've been trained to give you shrines other than Ifa, exclusively for you to worship with. So if I give you a shrine for Obatala, if I prepare a shrine for Orisha Ajay, or I prepare a hand of Ifa, that does not make you a priest or priestess of that Orisha. It means you have the capacity to do your 4 day worship. You can get down every 4 days and you can make your offerings and your prayers to that Orisha for your well-being, for your health, for the well-being of your home and your family. So that's what I mean when I say shrine. Magnificent question. I don't have a shrine yet, but soon. Yeah, and if you don't have a shrine, you can still get down and observe the four. You can learn all of the prayers. You can know the calendar, and you can make all of the prayers. Okay, and as a matter of fact, it's probably a better idea that you start that way, so that you're in the flow, right? So, question: are you asking different prayers for each of the individual Orisha that you're consulting, or are you asking prayers generally and seeing what each one's talked about? Oh, great question. I think we froze over here though. Okay, so am I asking? Sorry about that. I don't know technology. Am I asking all of the Orisha the same thing? That's a great question, and this is why it's important that you learn Oriki, because what you're going to ask Eshu a particular set of questions, or you're going to make a series of particular prayers that pertain to Eshu's domain, right? When you look at the Oriki of Eshu, and it depends on which Oriki you know too. So let's say, for example, if you look at Oriki of Eshu, you could focus on most of them are going to have this. You're going to focus, for example, on the fact that Eshu can confuse people, right? So you would or could make your prayers in a way that says, I'm particularly confused about this subject or that subject. I'm confused about this person or another person. Eshu, please don't let me go astray. Don't let me make poor decisions based on my confusion. Don't confuse me, Eshu. Right? Or it could just be in general. Eshu, don't confuse me in general. Confuse other people. You know what I mean? Confuse the neighbor, confuse the guy down the street. But Eshu, please don't confuse me. Right? When you go to your ancestors, then you're gonna be looking, you're gonna be studying the oriki of the ancestors. What do the oriki of the tell you about who the ancestors are? Well, your ancestors are concerned about your family. Your ancestors are concerned about providing for you. Your ancestors are the protectors and the guardians, right? These are different oriki and praise names of the ancestors. So you're going to be directing your prayers to those sorts of things. When you look at Ori, you're going to be studying the verses or the oriki of Ori. How Ori is the one who is most faithful. Ori is the one who's the most committed to you. Ori is the one who will never depart from you. Ori is the one who really provides for you, and when you need things most, Ori is the one who will carry the load for you. Ori, and you can generally make those prayers, or you can be very specific about what it is, right? And then or you can gauge how the divinities are responding based on the casting of your obi, right? When you cast your obi and you look at the signature that comes, that's going to give you an understanding of how close you are or how far you are from what you're aspiring to, right? Because they can just tell you flat out no, right? And then they'll, depending on how the signature falls, you're going to be able to discern why it's a no. And when you make offerings, right? Let's say, for example, you ask Eshu for direction for support in a particular direction. You want Eshu not to confuse you, and you ask him, "Hey, Eshu, I want to team up with this woman. I really like her. Don't confuse me. Is this the right move for me to, or will you accept my obi?" This is just you're just making Osei, so you're not going to ask those kind of questions. All you're going to ask Eshu is, "Will you accept my obi?" Right? This is key. This is key when you make Osei. The only question you're asking the Orisha is, will you accept my obi? If you ask Orisha anything other than that, you are asking for trouble, and you're going to be definitely confused. Will you accept my obi? Now you know what you prayed, but your question is, will you accept my obi? Brah. Orisha says no. Absolutely not. This is not the way for you to go. But you say, all right, now if I offer you some gin, will you accept it? Orisha says, yeah, maybe, maybe, perhaps. So you give the gin but they've accepted your obi along with the gin, and they accept with the cola nut and with the bitter cola and the palm oil. But at the foundation, you already know they did not accept that supplication right off. So you may get what you're asking for, you may be able to proceed, but this is not going to be a smooth operation. So you need to prepare yourself for some difficulty, some adversity, and and internally, you need to ask yourself why. You need to explore why would Eshu not agree with such a thing, right? And those are things for you to be honest and sincere with yourself. Okay. So that's a fantastic question. Let me go back here. Eshu mashe mio. Exactly. Ben, if I there. Eshu mashe mio. Don't confuse me, Baba, please. Question. Is learning Yoruba in a class setting a good starting point for having good Oriki? Absolutely. I would say, listen, you may not become conversant in Yoruba. Some people do, some people don't. Most people don't. It's a language, you can learn it. But at the very least, you should know the ABD, right? If you start to learn ABD, the alphabet of Yoruba, it's going to help you be able to pronounce your Oriki pop properly. Abdefegb. You should be able to, you know, you should be able to pronounce it. You know, you should. You should. And if you're my student, then I'm gonna say absolutely. I'm not gonna accept you if you can't say something in Yoruba. It's just it doesn't make sense. You know. Now, if you become, you know what I'm saying, bilingual, great. It's even better because then you can help us get deep into the whole science. But at the very least, show respect for the tradition by learning to say things properly, or at least try to say things properly, right? You can learn. I say it because you can learn. It's not impossible. There are only so many sounds. There are only so many sounds. So, yes, I think it, without question, everyone should know some Yoruba. I it is obligatory for me. There's only so far you're going to be able to go with me if you refuse to be able to say, you know, Iba Olodumare or Batelelekaye. If you can't stretch yourself that far, you know what I'm saying? If it takes you a month, it takes you 3 months, great. I don't care how long it takes you, but you got to keep trying. If you can't do that, I'm not gonna. You know what I'm saying? So just be honest. I'm not gonna take you seriously. So that's important. Uh, what else do we have here? Any other questions? Other questions? Other questions about Osei? How many people have practiced Osei, Osei Ifa, and your Ifa told you no, or your Orisha told you no to something, but you went on ahead and you did it anyway? Have you had that experience? Let's see. I want to hear what that's like. That could be due to depression or high water bill. What? I don't know what that is. Uh, I definitely practice it with another set of Orisha and spirits. One part is honor, another prepare me for the day. Okay, that's interesting. Practicing Osei with another set of spirits. I'd like to hear more about that. I don't know how that's possible. I start with the ancestors, then the Boveda, a set of Orisha, Ifa, and last Shiva, a set of specifying tension with each group that resonate with me. Oh, interesting, interesting. That's great. You know what I mean? If that's now, when I say that's great, I mean that's what you're doing, and you're obviously alive, and you appear to be of sound mind. So it's working on you, working for you on some level. As a practitioner of Orisha lifestyle, though, I would say don't do that. Okay. This is the question here is that, or the statement is that I practice my Ose, and I is like of a eclectic blend, right? You've got the Boveda, you've got the Ifa, you've got Shiva. You know, as a practitioner of Orisha lifestyle, I would not recommend such a thing. I would not recommend such a thing, and I'm going to tell you why. There's a logic to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva has a logic. Orunmila has a logic, right? From a big distance, you might see some parallel in the logic, right? But when you get into it and you start working with Lord Shiva and you start working with Ifa, this is where you can start getting contradictory outcomes, where one is mostly in your own mind, in your own being. You've got to be able to assimilate that energy, and you got to be able to make sense of what's happening, and be able to determine where Ifa is taking you and where Lord Shiva is taking you, because the objectives of Hinduism are not the same as the objectives of Ifa, right? So this is where your study of the ontology of your religion become important. The objectives of Islam are not the same objectives as Ifa, right? What you're trying to accomplish is not the same. Okay, so you're progressing in two different directions. This is why I'm saying you can get to a lot of confusion, and you're not quite sure of like why you're not feeling right about what's going on. It seems to be moving forward, but you're not quite right, and it's not quite jiving for you. So That's why I say what I say. If you practice Hinduism over here and you practice Ifa over there, and then you can discern more clearly, right? I like to liken it to language. I speak Spanish, I speak English, but not at the same time, right? I don't speak Spanish and English at the same time. I speak Spanish to people, or if I'm even talking to someone bilingual, we're gonna have, you know, conversation in Spanish, and then maybe we'll like lace it with some English, or we'll speak in English and lace it with some Spanish. But you don't have 3 words English, 2 words Spanish, one Spanish English, Spanish English, Spanish English. Like, no, don't do that. Okay. Uh, so let me see if I can see some more messages here. I saw a lot of communication here. Someone says, I observed the 7-day calendar using your Pataki book. Magnificent. Pataki, the 7-day calendar, that's a whole nother slice. That's even more ideal for people who don't have consecrated shrines, right? That 7-day calendar is set up specifically for you just to get centered and focused and clarify, the spiritual energy that you want to embody and that is permeates that particular day. So that 7-day calendar is really good, and the full course of Pataki, I offer that as a separate course, and then it's also built into the School of Orisha Studies too. I think at the copper class, we go through all those prayers, and the most important part about the 7-day calendar, the way I teach it anyway, is that I'm giving you the 4-part structure of prayer, where you go through the invocation, and you go through your supplication, you make your offering, you make your agreement. That's important for organizing your own, internal practice and your own approach to the devotion. Let's see. I have tried to go ahead with something I wanted to do. It failed in some instances, and it was even a disaster or tragedy. Okay, so this is a response to the question of, have you made your Osei and you got the message, and if I said no, and you went on with it, and it can end in very, very dire outcomes, right? And that's why that's Osei really also, what it does is it ties you into one of the distinguishing features of our practice, which is divination. It's prayer. You got prayer, you got meditation, you got divination. Prayer is asking, Lord, help me with A, B, and C. Meditation is learning to listen, right? Those two go together very well. I make my prayer, and then I learn to be quiet, and I learn to discern the voice of Eshu, the voice of my ancestors, the voice of Ifa, right? Very important. The third piece, however, is divination. When you add divination to it, you get a more concrete, visible response immediately. You don't have to wonder, okay? So if you're adept at prayer, which includes making your oriki and articulating your prayer in a special way, right? A lot of times, Westerners, when we come into the tradition, the Orisha tradition, one of the most important first things you learn is how to pray. How to pray. The question that was asked, do you ask Egungun and Eshu and Ori and Ifa the same thing? I remember when I first started, it was like I would, we'd be going through a ceremony, and ritual after ritual after ritual, they say pray. And I'd be like, man, I just said the same prayer over and over again. Like, how many times am I going to say this same prayer? But that was because I wasn't really clear about the different virtues and attributes of the Orisha, right? And so it wasn't until I started really getting deeper into the Oriki that I could appreciate them kind of like spices, right? Turmeric, cardamom, cayenne pepper, California chili powder, New Mexico chili powder. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if you've only been cooking with salt and pepper your whole life, when you start getting into all these other herbs and spices, it's like, wow, right? Which ones go with fish? Which ones go with beef? Which ones go with vegetables, right? The more you cook, the better you're going to understand and appreciate the subtleties and the nuances of what each one does. And so it is with your prayers. You gotta, you gotta take a little bit of time to slow it down and be able to appreciate who you're talking to and how you need to talk to them and how you listen to them. How is Eshu likely to communicate with you? How is your ancestors likely to communicate with you, and so on. Okay, and then finally that obi, when it falls and it falls a certain way, bang, you're going to be attuned to it because all the little details of how that obi fell are going to be significant to you. And so Osei Ifa is when I say like the conditioning aspect of it, it gets you into that groove. It makes you sensitive and helps you to cultivate a higher and higher level of awareness, in multiple on multiple levels and in multiple facets of what it means to be a devotee. Okay. Uh Let me see. Let me go up here a little bit. I hear you, but Oromila and Shongo want me to practice all those things simultaneously. I'm a special case, laughing out loud, but I agree that it should be careful. Okay, yeah. So that's that. Everybody has their thing, and I'm not sure where you are writing from in the world, but I know that when I go to Trinidad, it's a whole different flavor, in terms of the level of infusion, the particular kind of infusion that you see in the Trinidadian spectrum. And so, like I said, I can't tell anybody what to do or what not to do. All I can say is, A, for myself, what I practice based on my training and what works for me. B, what I'm going to train you to do if you're my student. If you're my student, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm going to insist that you do things in a certain way when we're together. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? If I'm testing you on A, B, and C, this is what I want to see. I don't want to see none of the other stuff. You can bring that to bear in the behind the scenes. You could be doing all kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying, in your own spirit. That's great. But when it comes to what you practice with me in order for me to approve it and say yes, I'm only looking for some specific things. Other than that, no. And that comes from my training. I'm an Ifa devotee, okay, and Ifa is that way. We don't we keep certain things, you know what I'm saying, focused, and certain things don't belong in the area. It's kind of like a doctor with what do they call it? It's not hygiene, but what's the word I'm looking for? That sterile, right? There's a certain level of ritual sterility, right? We want to keep the space clean so that what shows up is very clear. We know that this is exactly what we're looking for, and we don't have to be confused because it's already confusing enough. All right. So the last thing what I want to that I want to share with you is we've gone through some of the processes. I've taken you through the structure of making Osei, and what I want to say last but not least is to finalize this conversation on the significance of prayer. We go from prayer, meditation, and divination. Um, the way I'm teaching OB divination as a part of making Osei is focusing just on the 5 signatures of OB divination. This is like what I call OB divination level 1. I recognize at least 3 levels of OB, but we're only dealing with level 1. So I was alluding to this level in the prayer segment of the conversation, wherein I say, you could be praying for a lot of different things, but you're only going to ask Orisha one question: will you accept my OB? That's the only question you're going to ask. Will you accept my OB? Because we're looking at the 5 signatures of the OB at that point. And when the Orisha responds and you see, a signature, for example, Alafia, right? Then you're gonna understand what Orisha is telling you. You're gonna do everything that is, goes with seeing Alafia, and you're just gonna move forward from that point. We're not looking at Obi as we're not at the level of doing Osei 5, this is really important. We're not looking at Obi as a general form of divination, like or a lesser form, like say for example of Ifa divination or cowrie shells. Excuse me, I need electricity. When you come to consult Ifa, this is where you ask open-ended questions. Ifa, is this going to be a good day? Is this a job that I should take? You know, that's a straight ahead question that you ask during divination. When you do your ose, you're only asking about the acceptance of the obi. Okay, that's it. Nothing other than that. And that's, excuse me. So that's important for you to understand how we're gonna learn how to read the obi. Okay, I hope that's clear. Um, and the reason why I'm specifying that is because there's a mindset. There's a way that you think about obi. There's a way you think about, how do I describe this? Obi divination. I talk about this in my book, Dida Obi. Obi divination, one of the best things that you're going to get from Obi divination is that it will train your mind. It will train your mind to ask questions in a proper way, right? One of my most hilarious experiences with making Osei was asking Eshu to do something for me, but you know what I mean, and not being specific, not being very careful about how I asked the question. I asked Eshu to remove me from a situation, or I forget how I phrased the question, but it was like I asked Eshu to take me out of this situation, right? Just take me out of this situation, separate me from this situation, something like that, right? And I gave him the obi. He said yes, he accepted. And I think on that day, I forgot how it ended, but somehow, as you accepted, at the end of the day, there was a horde of police around my car. That's how the day ended, and I was like shocked, like what the heck is going on here? But when I thought about it, I said, and it was on the day of Oseifa. I said, what in the world is going on? And I thought and I thought and I thought, and I had to go back and ask myself, what exactly happened today? How did I start this off? And I threw my OB. Eshu said yes, but then I had to really drill down and said, you know what? You asked Eshu the question in the wrong way. You weren't specific enough, right? And so it's the way that Eshu teaches, right? It's the way Eshu shows up and manifests. You learn to respect Eshu for who he is and how he operates, and you tread not necessarily lightly, but you are precise. You say what you mean, okay? And so OB divination will start to condition your thinking so that you understand which deity you're talking to and what you want, how you want to receive that information, how you want that feedback, right? So oftentimes in the human realm, to make this simpler, because I don't like being esoteric and all that. If I ask you for feedback, it's my obligation, it's my responsibility to let's say I've written something and I send it to you, and what I wanted was I just wanted to know what you thought about the idea. This is a rough draft. I just was excited and I sent it to you, right? You read it and it's got all kind of grammatical errors, and so you write back and you're like, you red inked my thing. You don't have a comma here. This shouldn't be a semicolon. You know what I mean? And you misspelled this, and this should be capitalized, and this paragraph is too long, and you know what I mean? And you're giving me all this technical response. Now I'm angry because, you know what I'm saying? The feedback that you've given me isn't what I'm looking for, right? But it was my fault. I was the one who fell short because I didn't explain to you, hey, I'm sharing you with this document with you, and what I want feedback just on the idea? Is this a hot idea or not? Right? Likewise, vice versa. If I want grammatical, technical feedback because I know the idea is hot, and then you're giving me ideas like I love this idea, and it's just like, ooh, this makes me think about this, that, and the other, and it's like I'm frustrated because I'm not interested in your impressions. I want to know that grammatically does it make sense. I need to determine and specify what kind of feedback I want. OB, the first level of OB divination, already it has built into it a specific kind of feedback. You're only going to get a certain kind of feedback. You're looking for a very specific kind of feedback. Yes or no. That's all you need to know. And you need to condition yourself to just ask yes or no questions. It's like learning how to program a computer. Yes or no, right? And then the five signatures are going to give you a spectrum of yes and no. Yes if, no unless, right? And so you need to get comfortable with thinking along that line and accepting those kinds of feedback, because it's going to now shape your communication. It's going to make you a better communicator because it's going to shape up your thinking. All right. So, okay, good. That's good. So what I'm going to do now is we're at an hour, which is, for me, it seems like a long time for us to be talking about this in this format. But I hope that this has been an insightful lesson for you. As I mentioned before, this is this making Osei is the driving force of what I'm teaching in the School of Orisha Studies. And so if you're interested in learning to make Osei, you want to get the really nuts and bolts on how you do every one of those steps that I mentioned. I want you to, join the School of Orisha Studies, because that's what it's all about. This is the driving force. This is the most important lesson that we're teaching in the school. All of the lessons coalesce around being able to perform the Osei ceremony correctly and, fluently. Okay, so if you want to join us and participate in the revelries of learning to practice Osei Fa, Google School of Orisha Studies. Go to my website, obafemio.com or orishalifestyle.com. Join the School of Orisha Studies and get in so that you can start learning how to make Osei Fa and upscale or upgrade your spiritual practice. Yes, Oba is in the house. Y Boya, tengo mi mano de Orula y mis guerreros donde y empiezo a aprender qué hacer. Okay. Y Boya, tengo mi mano de. Okay. So this is somebody who has a hand of Ifa and he wants to know what he should learn to start doing. So I'm going to respond to him in Spanish because he wrote to me in Spanish. So, fíjate que Numi, ya que tú tienes la mano de Ifá y de los guerreros no puedo darte consejo realmente, pero aparte del hecho de que en este conjunto, en este equipo tienes Eshu, entonces lo que tú puedes hacer es, si tú quieres practicar Oseifa a lo Isheshe, lo que puedes, yo soy de Curazao y no hay escuela. Ok, está bien. Fíjate que lo que yo te recomiendo es que nosotros platicamos y averiguamos qué método tú quieres aplicar o qué quieres practicar. Lo de Afrocuba o del África. Porque en África no tenemos guerreros, pero sí tenemos la Ishefa, que es la mano de Orúmila. Tú puedes hacer Oseifa, la ceremonia cada 4 días con tu Ifa sin lío, ¿me entiendes? Pero con lo demás tienes que establecer una práctica que te conviene. Tú y yo podemos hablar, mándame un mensaje por correo electrónico o ponme tus datos ahí y nosotros podemos hablar más sobre el tema de cómo tú puedes puedes desarrollar una práctica. ¿Me entiendes? Um, so that being said, I'm going to sign off. I'm not seeing any more questions come through. It's been a fantastic conversation. You can go to orishalifestyle.com or bafemio.com and we'll build. I'd be more than happy to work with you. I'm actually, since we've got all this time in the quarantine, I'm gonna start going in more and on the with live classes in the School of Orisha Studies for everybody who's enrolled, and we're gonna really shore up your Osei practice. By now, you guys have started to accumulate some of the scattered practices. You can do Ijuba, you can do this Oriki, this song. So now we're gonna really start to put more emphasis into bringing them all together, in a fluent practice so you can understand where all these things fit together. Last question is, or another question is, what is your suggestion for those that don't have shrines? My feed went out. Oh, if you don't have a shrine, then you should do the prayers. Okay, people who don't have shrines, there's one of two things. If you don't have shrines and you want to have a shrine, you want to have a shrine, then it's a great test. It's a good preparation. Learn the Ijuba, the Kiki Orisha, the Oriki. You know what I mean? Start learning how to throw the Obi. Learn everything so that at the time that you're ready to have a shrine, you'll be able to take care of it. Right? You don't have a shrine and you don't know if you're going to have a shrine. You don't understand what that means. You're a true beginner. You don't know if you're going to commit to this as your lifestyle, right? You just like it. It's something that's appealing to you. If that's the case, I would say then you should go on the side of the 7-day calendar. Start with the 7-day calendar. In my book Pataki, in the course on devotion, I take you through all of that. And once you have the 7-day calendar is always useful, even if you practice the 4-day calendar. I still use the 7-day calendar. I still use the 7-day calendar for my prayers, right? Especially when I'm working with different medicine, right? The 7-day calendar is very helpful. So you're not going to lose anything. It's not like you learn the 7-day calendar and now you got a shrine and the 7-day calendar is irrelevant. No, the 7-day calendar is always going to be relevant. So you gotta make certain, you gotta discern for yourself or the person in question. If you know you're gonna make that commitment and you want to have a shrine and you want to take care of a shrine for the rest of your life, start learning all of those elements that I mentioned for the 4-day calendar. The 4 days, the Ijuba, the Kiki Orisha, Oriki Orisha, Obi divination, making offerings. Learn all of those things, right? If you're not sure, you're ready to commit to having that shrine though, start with the 7-day calendar, right? Join the School of Orisha Studies at that level. I think it's the Copper class. Master the 7-day calendar. Get the book Pataki. Enroll in the course on devotion. Master that 7-day calendar, and you're gonna be just fine. You're gonna be just fine. All right. All right. So, good people, it's been a fantastic conversation with you. I've enjoyed it. I hope you've gotten something out of this, and I'm gonna sign off and actually handle some other business actually in the shrine. So if you got questions, you know what to do. Leave messages in the comment section, and we'll update from there. Many blessings to you and yours. Bye for now. Odabo.